I don't want to get political. I don't wake up and be like, I'm going to get political today. Like, that's not my goal. But I know that if I want to have a life, I have to fight for my life. Who says that? Ask yourself, how many of you watch this right now know that when you wake up, you have to fight for your life, your right to live, your right to employment, your right to safety, your right to dignity? How many people wake up and tell themselves those are things they need to do today? And I don't even do that just for myself. I do that for other people. I do that for the kids. Hello all, it's Taylor. Let's just cut to the chase. If I look sweaty and gross, it's because I feel sweaty and gross. Apparently, sometimes at this time of year, temperature is a construct. You know, you'd think a 10-minute walk back and forth from the pharmacy would be perfectly fine, but right now the temperature is about 3 degrees Celsius, which means for me, the hot and cold flip between each other in seconds. Fun! Anyway, hi, welcome to Dwell On It, a series where I, Taylor, answer your questions about my lived experience as a trans woman. So that's a question, for example, that you're more than welcome to ask if you'd like to know how temperature works for trans individuals when stuff like that was never a problem before. Anyway, in seriousness, I'm super happy that you're here. If you're new here, please subscribe. I absolutely love seeing more people join and, appreciate the content. And speaking of, if you do appreciate the content, hit like. What liking does is it helps give a little bit of a nudge to algorithms on social media platforms. So especially if people are interested in similar content, it would get, pushed up into their views a lot sooner or a lot more frequently. And then similarly enough too, please share. I've said it numerous times in numerous videos and numerous times in numerous places as well. My reach can only reach as far as I can reach. I know it sounds kind of silly like that, but realistically, you are the people who help me get this message out, right? By you sharing this message to other individuals, whether it's through your own networks, you email, hit the share button on your screen, whatever it is, that does a huge, huge, huge favor. A couple things of housekeeping in the description are 2 fundraisers. I'm looking to reach $1,411 for each on June 5th and June 11th. Our Windows fundraisers are, one is Run for Women and one is for Walk for MD. So that's supporting women's mental health and mental health awareness and women's wellness programs, and the other is helping individuals dealing with up to over 160 neuromuscular disorders. To do an online donation, get a tax receipt for your contribution. Please hit share for that as well. Otherwise, other housekeeping, as I've mentioned, a couple bits of housekeeping. Like I mentioned, where I am, Winnipeg, Manitoba, which is Treaty 1 territory. Visual description, I am a hot mess apparently, or I sure feel like it. I'm a white 6'1" trans woman. I am, it's still straight, right? I've got blonde straightened hair swept over my left eye with my 3 dermal piercings underneath my right eye, as always, in a small, medium, large fashion going outwards towards the top of my right ear where there's a cluster earring. I've got my 2 stud piercings and my 1 nose piercing. My color palette for my makeup is based on brown. I'm wearing an orange or salmon or something t-shirt, which I hope, just based on what I'm feeling, I hope it doesn't look too sweaty by the time this recording is done. But hey, that's how I'm doing things today. I'm in my living room / office / gym, depending on what perspective or time of day we're looking at things right now. Beige walls. I've got 3 pieces of cardio equipment behind me, which is my recumbent bike, my treadmill, and my my elliptical. Otherwise, I think that's the long and short of it. If you're new to me, right? Like I said, my name is Taylor. I'm an advocate for trans rights, especially for trans inclusion in sports. I use she, her pronouns. At the time of this recording, I also recorded a video for a campaign called Letters for Trans Kids. Letters, number 4, trans kids. It's exactly what it sounds like. They're letters of support for trans individuals. I'm going to put a link in the description for that too. Please make sure to take a look at that one, showing support for trans kids who are currently under siege by so many bills. I've spoken about it in so many other videos of topics that I have talked about what is essentially efforts of trans erasure, and they're using trans kids as a target for that. So please just take a couple of moments for that. Let's get into Dwell On It while we're here. What do you think most people don't realize about trans folks? We're human beings too. We need you more than you think. When you turn your back on us, that is incredibly telling. You are turning your back on an incredibly vulnerable individual who needs your help more than ever. They need your help in terms of the system. Politically, trans individuals are under siege. Socially, trans individuals are fundamentally excluded, even though the paperwork says otherwise. In the sense of community, you have to have a sense of belonging to feel welcome. In families reject their kids or don't allow them to be who they are. I spoke about it in my Trans Day of Awareness video. Long story short, using US statistics, about 1 in every 2 parents do not love their trans kid. Hi, that's 50% of parents do not love their trans kid. Trans folks need support. Trans folks do not come from a place of wealth. Trans folks do not come from a place of inclusion. Trans folks do not come from a place of belonging. Trans folks fight for equity. Trans folks need you. When a trans person comes out, they're sacrificing everything that they have so that they can finally belong with themselves. They sacrifice everything that they have so that they can feel free, real, authentic. And the amount of people who turn their backs on someone who just wants to be happy is incredible. Trans folks need you more than ever. Trans folks aren't going away. Trans folks aren't a fad. Trans individuals are human beings who are trying to understand themselves and get people to understand that it's okay to be who they are, and people reject them, dismiss them, ignore them. Even when it comes to simple calls to action like me saying, hey, please share this message. How many of you hearing me say those words right now are not going to share this message? I'm not saying it to sound cool. I'm not saying it to sound like an influencer. I'm not saying it to sound popular. I'm saying it because I need you to get visibility about trans lives, because trans lives matter. Trans lives are under siege. Trans lives are at risk by individuals who use trans folks as a pawn to leverage themselves. So when I say please share, I'm not saying it to sound cool. I'm saying it because I need you. Trans folks need you. That's something most people don't recognize about trans folks. When we're asking for help, we're asking for help. Is there a country that you will never go to that may surprise others? I'm not inspired to go many places that are south of the 49th parallel. Realistically, for me, when it comes to going to any country, the first thing that I think of is there's a variety of indexes that show where 2S LGBTQIA plus acceptance kind of ranks. My desire to go to locations would be pretty much in line with something like that. That said, I'm going to put a link to it. I may as well throw it in as a plug. I was on a hallway conference speaking with Carrie Simpson about trans inclusion at events, at conferences, and we were discussing about the invitations to go to Mexico and Jamaica. Check it out. It's closer to the end of the podcast, but please give the entire thing a listen. It'll explain things in better detail. I think this is a really good way to also give Carrie some extra attention on that too, so I would really appreciate it if you do take a moment and jump in and give that podcast a listen. It was super exciting to have that opportunity. The recording for that too was also done on Trans Day of Visibility, so it's just really nice to get that opportunity by Carrie and by Managed Sales Pros to help share my lived experience. Long story short though, when it comes to countries that I would go to or not go to, and directly related to things like those indexes as I mentioned earlier, if I'm not really assured safety, or if I really have to claw for safety, what's the value of being there? That's kind of the long and short of it. I shouldn't have to be safe within my own little bubble. I should be allowed to be safe to exist in the first place. Is there any advice you wish you had? Do you have any to share? Let's do the latter first. Follow me, subscribe. In seriousness, I try to use my lived experience as a way to help share. That's what Dwell on It is about, by answering questions so I can share my lived experience based on what other people are curious about. I'm not going to say I wish I had advice like love yourself, because I would have dismissed it anyway. So I'm going to say this. Love yourself and expect that to get dismissed. But realistically, my biggest takeaway was, whether it's coming from coming out, just growing to accept myself and so on and so on, the self-acceptance is the most important thing. And I know I spoke about that in another video, so expect a link around here. Totally check that out, because it really goes deeper in depth about how important of all the things, that self-acceptance is something I can never tell you to do, right? I can never be like, just accept yourself and everything will be fine. What will happen is the day that you recognize how important self-acceptance is, it makes everything that much easier going forward. And you're going to reflect on those times that you struggled with something and you recognize that it was because of a lack of self-acceptance, and so on and so on and so on. So if there's any advice that I have to share, is learn self-acceptance, learn self-love, learn those things. If you struggle with those things, prioritize those things, because everything after that gets so much more healthy, so much easier just for yourself. It's not saying society gets better. I'm not saying that doing that makes society better, but it makes how you cope with society. It makes how you cope with your day. It makes how you cope with just getting out of bed. It makes those so much better. If there's any advice that I wish I had otherwise, kind of wish that I had that sit down, that political sit down when I was a lot younger, especially if someone was able to show me how my voice was necessary, and to just get more, if not necessarily more involved, but to recognize how important it is, because as a trans individual, like it or not, that you are going to be a target for people who want to leverage themselves against you, and to just have the know-how to cope with that, how to go back against that, how to go ahead and create a system stump that works against that too. And anytime anyone had any conversations with me in the past, right, about anything gender diverse, lots of times it'd just be the stereotypical stuff that I really don't find myself engaged with. And like I said, I really wish that I had those heart-to-hearts about the political side of being a trans individual. And it's not a political side of being a trans individual, it's just the political element that you get forced into outside of your control. I don't want to get political. I don't wake up and be like, I'm gonna get political today. Like, that's not my goal. But I know that if I want to have a life, I have to fight for my life. Who says that? Ask yourself, how many of you watch us right now know that when you wake up, you have to fight for your life, your right to live, your right to employment, your right to safety, your right to dignity? How many people wake up and tell themselves those are things they need to do today? And I don't even do that just for myself. I do that for other people. I do that for the kids. Hashtag letters for trans kids. Write a letter. Get it out there. Be part of this movement. That's the advice I have for you. I don't know how to ask this, I think. Why do you want to be a woman or a transgender woman? Full spoiler, in case you haven't watched the Letters for Trans Kids video that I uploaded, I spoke about left-handed individuals. There's a study, I was reading about this, but it was in 2019 or something like that. But bottom line, 10% of people are left-handed. It's in the DNA. So simply enough, why does somebody want to be left-handed? They just are. And especially when you consider a left-handed individual, like we think of how people write in binders, how people use scissors that aren't designed to be left-handed, and so on and so on and so on. Anyone who's left-handed knows the struggles that I'm talking about. I'm right-handed, by the way. Ask them, why do you want to be left-handed when you just keep rubbing your arm into the ink, right? Like, why do you want to write left-handed when you smear everything that you're doing? It's not a choice, it's how you are. I appreciate the point of the question, but that's the thing. I don't want to be anyone but me. I am me. I am a woman. I am a trans woman. I don't want to be anybody but who I am. And I am a trans woman. End of story. I'm gonna end on this note. I know I feel like I burned through a few of these, but I'm gonna be fully transparent. First, my shirt feels transparent. I still feel super sweaty and hot, so I hope this comes out okay. Second, I'm in the middle of editing a bunch of videos. I've got a series like I was talking about that I'm working on. Like I said, it's a lot of content. I've trimmed it down significantly. There's still a lot of content, so make sure to get your popcorn ready. For people who are watching this on stuff like Instagram and Reddit and whatever, remember that embedded links and whatnot don't show up all the time on those types of platforms. So when you have an option to check it out on YouTube, definitely do, because that way you get the best experience overall. Otherwise, in the description, as I mentioned, are those two fundraisers that I'm talking about. Please help me reach my goals of $1,411 for each. There's less than 2 months left to get those done, and it would really mean a lot to me if you can help me out and get those goals met. And lastly, help me out with that call to action as well. That there's a link that is hosted by New Mode. What that is a call to action to your political leaders in your area. Enter your name, your email address, and your postal code, and what it does is it sends a pre-made letter to the elected officials, as I mentioned, in your area based on your postal code. And what it's doing is it's telling them that it is important to take a look at the businesses, the companies, and the organizations in your area, in your neighborhood, and incentivize them to really optimize their corporate social responsibilities to assure that those businesses, organizations, and companies are working in the best interest of the community. And when it comes to helping the community, everybody wins in that case. Please make sure to take a couple moments. It's less than a minute to fill that out. Name, email address, postal code, hit send. Everything else gets done. I did it once in 14 seconds. You can do it too. Please and thank you. Otherwise, let's wrap this one up. Thank you so much for taking the time with me today. If you haven't yet, please subscribe. Please hit like. Please share. I really appreciate the opportunity to share this content with you, and I really, really appreciate it when you share this content with other people as well. Please subscribe. Stay tuned for all this other content that I'm putting up there. Please help stay engaged. I love seeing this content get more visibility, more action, and can't do that without you. So remember, there's that series that I was talking about. If you haven't seen it yet, also look for that Letters for Trans Kids campaign video that I posted. As always, there's content for Dwell on it, and I'm trying to get more involved with the shorts and the stories thing on both YouTube and Instagram. Please subscribe, follow, stay up to speed, share, like as always. Have a great rest of your night. Otherwise, have a great rest of your week, as I always love to say. Can't wait to see you again next week, and otherwise we will